Ayun, welcome back everybody. How was your lunch break? Because I'm curious of what you guys had, if you guys had lunch or a quick snack or maybe breakfast or something. Because just want to share that I just had tapa. It's a if so for of you may not know, for our international audience, it's is it correct, beef or pork? I'm not sure. I'm sure it's beef or yeah. Basta,
Matchis tayo, Gab. Mine was
I
also like
really,
breakfast food. I had longganisa. So it seems like we both had brunch food. How about you, Dr.
yeah,
Rubita? What
in
did
a
you have
way.
for lunch?
Wait lang. I had tinola.
Oh my gosh, ako rin. I had tinola and I had longganisa. Grabe. How about you, Dr. Labor? What did you have for lunch?
I'm you're muted. I'll unmute.
Oh, you're muted po.
Okay, even though I'm honest, I wouldn't want to say tinola as well because we both had tinola today. We had that, but at the same time, we also had steamed pampano. So at least I have something different to contribute, something healthier, but all
yes.
right.
Oh my gosh. The audience here in the Zoom chat is privately messaging me saying one of them said adobo, one said palaya. Hey, it sounds like everyone here had a good lunch. So welcome again, welcome everyone.
Okay, so
okay, go Gab.
I'll go ahead. Okay, so yeah, for the next part of our program entitled Celebrating Heroes in Heritage Endemic Flowers, before we proceed with the session, we have here Dr. Honey Libertine Achanzar-Labor to give us a brief introduction of the session theme.
All right. Okay. I start now. All right. So yes. Thank you all for joining us this morning during our opening and plenary sessions. No? In each year's Flores de Mayo festival and conference, we continue to promote local heritage, such as the intangible cultural heritage of the Flores de Mayo, endemic and native flora, as well as art and craft production, which promotes heritage. But this year, we share our local heritage to participants from different parts of the globe, as we also provide them a platform to showcase their country's floral festivals. No? We heard this morning 4 wonderful presentations representing countries of France, Turkey, India, and the US. And we have one more international guest tomorrow who shall be talking about batik art. No? Incidentally, she was a grand winner of an international batik competition which took place in Malaysia. So this is indeed a milestone for us in the Faura project, but also for everyone who has been supporting the cause all throughout the years. No? But this afternoon's event, though, marks another milestone. Okay, as we present a session which we hope to include regularly in the years to come. No? I mean, an annual celebration of our festival. No? So a session for paper presenters who we consider heroes, no? Due to their significant contribution to the conservation of endemic flora. No? So to further explain the significance of these heroes is our session chair and moderator, who happened to be herself at the forefront of the conservation of an endemic flower, a species of begonia. So to introduce her properly, let us now go back to Cherise and Gab. So good afternoon to all. Yes. And looking forward to another wonderful session.
Thank you so much, Dr. Achanzar-Labor. Okay, so as Dr. Achanzar-Labor said, we can now proceed with the session proper. So it is my honor and a really great honor and my pleasure to introduce our session moderator for this afternoon session, Dr. Rosario R. Rubite. So Dr. Rosario R. Rubite is the only specialist on the plant begonia in the Philippines. She has received recognition as an outstanding researcher of the 2017 Gawad Chancellor Awards and a university scientist for 3 terms. 2015 to 2016, 2017 to 2019, and 2020 to 2022. She has finished her undergraduate program, BS Biological Sciences, at the University of the Philippines, Manila. She has taken up MS Biology afterwards in the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and has continued to pursue graduate studies in the La Salle University, attaining a Ph.D. in biology. So again, let's all welcome our moderator for this session, Dr. Rubite.
Thank you, Charisse, for that generous introduction. Okay, good afternoon to our friends, for colleagues in the academe who are here, not only from UP Manila, from other universities, students, or also we have some plant enthusiasts or plant lovers around. Okay, so for this session, we will meet 5 heroes. I call them scientists heroes because these are the specialists that passionately work on the Philippine flora. Our first speaker obtained his Bachelor of Science in Agriculture, major in Horticulture, and Master of Science in Plant Breeding, major in Horticulture, at the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. He is a prolific researcher, produced almost 50 scientific publications, 2 books, contributed chapters to 10 different books, developed 23 varieties and 17 hybrids, including the Carica papaya Sinta. All of these are registered at the National Seed Industry Council. Notable among his many DOST-funded projects is the varietal improvement of selected ornamental crops, including Spathoglottis orchid, Anthurium, and Hoya, through gamma radiation. For developing the radiation process carrageenan plant growth promoter that help increase the harvests in farmlands across the country, our speaker, together with his team, garnered the 2020 Presidential Lingkod Bayan Award. Our scientist hero is a senior science research specialist and career scientist of the Philippine Nuclear Research Institute of the Department of Science and Technology. Friends, let us all welcome Master Fernando Auregue, who will talk on the Philippine Hoya plant genetic resources for conservation and sustainable utilization. Sir Nanding, you have the virtual stage. Let's give him a virtual applause.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rubite, for that kind introduction. Good day to all participants of this virtual International Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference. Now, let me share with you my PowerPoint presentation. I hope you see it now. First, I would like to thank Dr. Achanzar-Labor for inviting me as one of the panel of speakers. As introduction, let us focus at the center of this backdrop. We see a bunch of frangipani or temple flowers, and I am pleased to inform you that I was able to register with the National Seed Industry Council of the Bureau of Plant Industry, Department of Agriculture, Plumeria rubra radians as a mutant variety. It is also registered with the International Atomic Energy Agency Mutant Variety Database. This plant belongs to the milkweed family, which has another very important member, the periwinkle or Catharanthus roseus. Do you know that two compounds that are now being used to treat several types of cancer were extracted from this species? These are vincristine and vinblastine. Another member of the milkweed family is Hoya celata. Wax plants belong to a complex group of flowering plants that abound in the Philippines. However, its potential value as a medicinal plant or possible source of drugs has been explored only recently. Studies on Hoyas is very limited, but it is becoming an important subject for research and conservation as valuable plant genetic material. Some species have been recorded with ethnobotanical uses here in the Philippines and abroad. Among the species locally used in traditional medicine are Hoya coriacea, Hoya melliflua, Hoya diversifolia, and Hoya imbricata. A review of plant compounds with biological activities suitable for drug development extracted from 11 species of Philippine Hoyas has been published in Italian just recently. The study was spearheaded by the late Dr. Consolacion Ragasa of De La Salle University. With that, I would like to present to you what have already been done for Philippine Hoyas, plant genetic resources for conservation and sustainable utilization. The first question usually asked is, what is Hoya? And the answer is, it is a genus of flowering plants established by Mr. Robert Brown in 1810, whose picture here was downloaded from the internet. Mr. Brown named it after his friend Mr. Thomas Hoy, chief gardener of the Duke of Northumberland at Sion House, England. The type species is Hoya carnosa, first discovered in China, but also found native here in the Philippines. Hoya may be distinguished from other plants by the following features. Most are herbaceous plants that grow on or cling to other larger plants as vines. They have succulent leaves and exude white latex when bruised, but there are exceptions. The flowers have a set of petals called corolla that is wheel-shaped, and the staminal crown or corona has edges that curve back. In addition, the crown has modified guide rails and generally folded underskirt with secondary nectaries. Under the microscope, the pollinia has pellucid margins, as can be seen in this photomicrograph of the pollinarium. Lastly, the seeds are spindle-shaped without conspicuous wings, but bear a tuft of soft hairs for wind dispersal. Since 1809, at least one species is discovered in the Philippines and published. In 1990, 2009, 2011, and 2012, 8 species were described and named due to renewed interest in the genus. However, the large numbers of publications since 2013 were not new discoveries, but rather old herbarium materials, which are dry specimens deposited in various herbaria around the world, were given scientific names. Hence, some of the published species may not have living specimens, and we are not sure if they are really distinct species or just synonyms. You may ask how many species of Hoya are there in the Philippines. There is a total of 216 validly published species. 189 are endemic or could be found nowhere else but the Philippines, like Hoya cagayanensis. And 27 are indigenous or could be also be found in the Philippines as well as in other neighboring countries like Hoya elliptica. So there is about 85% endemicity. The book Philippine Hoya Species, a monograph, authored by Mr. Robert Dale Kloppenberg, was published in 1991. A second edition was released in 1993. Then a new volume reaching 600 pages is made available by the International Hoya Association. This is a compilation of the descriptions of newly published species added to the previous publications. Here is my picture with Mr. Kloppenberg and the late Dr. Simeona Siar, who authored Philippine Hoyas, published in 2005. My book, titled A Collection of Philippine Hoyas and Their Culture, was published in 2013 by the Philippine Council for Agriculture, Aquatic and Natural Resources, Research and Development, or PICAARD. It is now out of print. On March 8, 2011, the first quarter topical issue featuring 8 Philippine Hoyas was released by the Philippine Postal Corporation. It is the first Hoya on Philippine stamps. On March 26, 2018, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas or Central Bank of the Philippines released the new generation currency coin series with Hoya pubicalyx, locally called kapal-kapal baging, featured on the reverse side of the coin. The obverse side does not look like this anymore because the original plan and design were changed. This page is supposed to be a part of a coffee table book that did not push through in 2014. The Philippine Native Plant Conservation Society Incorporated, or PNPCSI, produced the 2022 calendar featuring 12 Philippine Hoyas. The back of the monthly calendar contains valuable information about the species, while the picture can be cut and used as postcard. The training on Hoya production, conducted on Earth Day 13 years ago, was the birth of a thriving Philippine Hoya industry. Immediately afterwards, several Hoya clubs were established all over the country. Some of the trainees became commercial nursery owners and exporters of propagated Hoya plants. Architect Wendy Regalado wore a Hoya buotii flower as ear ornament. Several posters on Hoya were prepared and presented in various events. Among them are the posters on interspecific hybridization of Hoya by Ms. May Cabarrubias and co-workers, and a study of the evolutionary development of Hoya species by Ms. Ro Gardose and her research team members during the recent Junior Researchers Organization of the Institute of Plant Breeding, College of Agriculture and Food Science, University of the Philippines, Los Baños. 2 other posters by Dr. Nids Aguilion and yours truly were presented virtually during the International Symposium of the PNPCSI last November 2021. The titles are about moths and butterflies that visit specific Hoya flowers and color variation of Hoya buotii flowers among plants obtained from open pollinated seeds, which you will see more later. There is also a poster displayed during garden show at UPLB on propagation and representative Philippine Hoyas, and one displayed during a National Research Council of the Philippines scientific convention many years ago. Oral papers were presented in several local and international events like this one during the International Flora Malaysiana Symposium. And several garden shows featured Hoya plants and pictures or posters in different venues. This is Hoya imperialis sitting on an ostrich egg by Mr. Mac Pagsulingan. A few research undertakings on Hoyas are varietal development in Philippine native Hoyas, led by Ms. Debs Guevara of the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, and funded by Picard. It started last year and will be completed next year. The characterization of Philippine endemic Hoyas towards conservation is led by Ms. Ro Gardose, also of UPLB, and funded by the UPLB Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research and Extension. It started last year and hopefully will be completed this year. Mine on varietal improvement using gamma rays was implemented many years back. That was in 2007 to 2011. And it was also funded by Picard. Some of the popular Hoya groups are Philippine Hoya Society, absorbed as Hoya Study Group of the Philippine Horticultural Society, Philippine Hoya Conservation Group, Hoya Philippines Worldwide, Hoya Enthusiast Philippines, and Hoya Traders Philippines. Now let's go to variety development. The flowers of this mother plant look like this, but the flowers of its offsprings are variable in color, so that selection of the most desirable ones or individuals can be done. Hoya Buote was named after my big brother during my college days at UPLB. Dr. John Buot, Professor of Botany, Plant Ecology, and Biodiversity Conservation. I also would like to introduce to you Mr. Ray Pimentel, my friend and mentor, who is a plant breeder par excellence. He used the Philippine native Hoya commundiana as female parent and the imported Hoya archbolgiana from Papua New Guinea as male parent to develop new hybrids. Look at these 3 samples of his outstanding hybrids among several others that truly deserve a place in the international market. With all due respect to Ms. Bing Pamoso Takan and members of the Philippine Botanical Artist Society, I would like to show to you the botanical arts of former students and staff. Ms. Joy Batak, who painted Hoya aurigayana as my birthday gift, and Mr. Erasmus Talusig with his first masterpiece of Hoya cutis porcellana. Lastly, I would like to acknowledge the following for all the help that they extended to me. This is Hoya diversifolia, cultivated by Dr. Nils Aguilion, with flowers on every node. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sir Auregue, for sharing with us today these gorgeous Hoya flowers. We commend your various research and please continue to study Hoyas for its conservation and sustainable utilization. It is fitting that a Hoya found in Quezon is named Hoya aurigiana to honor our scientist hero, Sir Fernando Auregue. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much too. Thank you.
Thank you for your presence in the Zoom room. Thank you.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
All right. Our next speaker obtained her PhD major in biology from De La Salle University, Manila. She was a former faculty member of De La Salle University, Dasmariñas, Cavite, and later moved to Central Mindanao University, her BS Biology alma mater. She is active in Arasi research. In fact, her dissertation focused on the systematics of Philippine Alocasia, a member of the family Arasi, involving morphology, anatomy, palynology, distribution, and molecular studies. She published several papers dealing on the plant group as well as ecology, biodiversity, and conservation. Our scientist hero was awarded Research Fellow at the Singapore Botanic Gardens Herbarium. Currently, she is the Biodiversity Laboratories and Facilities Unit Coordinator of the Center for Biodiversity Research and Extension in Mindanao, as well as a faculty member of the Department of Biology, College of Arts and Sciences of the Central Mindanao University. Aside from teaching, she is also involved in NRCP and DOST-funded research and extension projects and 2 institutionally funded researches. Friends, let us welcome Melanie Diang of the Central Mindanao University to talk about what should we know about Alocasia. Lani, you have the virtual stage.
Good day, everyone. The Philippines is not spared from COVID-19 pandemic, and people resort to tend or care the plants to cope the new normal. These are some of the headlines in the newspaper, broadsheets, not only in the Philippines but also abroad, dealing on plant endemic or plant craze. The craze for home gardening has increased, leading to high demand in new and unique plants. The soaring demand sparked a boom in sellers, mainly doing it online due to the lockdown, and prices skyrocketed in some instances by more than tenfold. Because of this, there is also a surge for plant poaching, and there were reports of rare plant species being looted from protected areas in the country. One of the most affected flowering plant taxa is the Alocasia. The Philippines harbors an estimated 15,000 species of plants, of which 70 to 80% are flowering plants or the angiosperms. And one of the angiosperm is the Araceae, also known as the aroids or the arum family, and in the Philippines we usually call it the gabi family. Araceae is one of the most ecologically and structurally diverse family of monocots, occupying a wide variety of habitats and display a notable diversity of life forms from geophytes, climbers, epiphytes, terrestrial, to free-floating aquatics. The family is best characterized by its inflorescence, a spadix, containing the flowers and the colorful and attractive space that surrounds the spadix. This group is represented by 114 genera and 3,750 species worldwide. However, in the Philippines, it is represented by only 26 genera, and an estimated of 150 species, wherein Alocasia has the most number of species. Alocasia is commonly known as the elephant's ear because of the shape of the leaves that resembles with that of the ear of the elephant. However, this common name also refers to other two genera of Araceae, the Colocasia or the gabi, and the Santosoma or Yaotia or Lucia in Cebuano. There are more than 113 species of Alocasia all over the world, and it occurs as a lowland tropical plant from 0 to 2,000 meters above sea level. This is the data in Malaysia or in Asia with the total number of species as well as the endemic species. So for Malay Peninsula, for example, they have more than 10 species, of which 3 are endemic. In Sumatra, there are 8 species, 3 are endemic. Borneo, 25 species, 22 are endemic. And in the Philippines, we have 15 species, which 14 are endemic. So based on this data, the Philippines is the second most species sub-region in Asia next to Borneo. The latest revision on Philippine Alocasia was done by Alistair Hay in 1999. However, his record is based mainly on herbarium specimens and horticultural informations, or we call it alpha taxonomy, field data, as well as assessment of ecological and distributional patterns are needed to confirm this report. That's why this study was conducted. Alocasia is one of the genera of aroids of major horticultural importance and agricultural significance. Alocasia macrorhizos or biga, for example, is an important food plant in the Visayan region, particularly in Samar and Leyte. So you would notice here that these are the rhizomes of Alocasia macrorhizos harvested for binagol production or binagol production in Tagami, Leyte. So locally, they call this talian. Aside from its agricultural significance, most of the species of Philippine Alocasia are also grown as ornamental plants, and we have these Alocasia sanderiana, Alocasia scalpum, and Alocasia clipeolata. Many species also of Alocasia are reported to have medicinal uses. So how do we identify an Alocasia? So Alocasia is characterized as perennial, caulescent, or acaulescent herbs, forming a tuberous rhizome codex with or without elongate rhizome. The stems are erect to decumbent, leaves ovate to triangular ovate, basally sagittate, sometimes it is naked or sometimes it is veltate. Most of the species of Philippine Alocasia has only 2 to 3 leaves per plant. The inflorescence is either in twos or in clusters at the center of the crown. The fruit is usually berry, fleshy, and bears 1 to 2 seeds. The inflorescence is made up of the spadix, which houses the female flower zone, the sterile interstices, the male zone, and the appendix. This spathe is also present and constricted basally to form a tube which encloses the spadix until anthesis. So this is the pistils or the ovaries found in the female flower zone at the bottom of the spadix, and this is the synandria found in the male flower zone. As part of my dissertation, I studied the morphology, anatomy, the pollen characters, ecology and distribution, as well as the molecular analysis. So based on my results, the Philippine alocasia exhibit 4 types of growth forms. So they can be grouped into a very massive pakay herb, reaching a height of more than 6 meters high, and then the robust caulescent herb with a height of 2 meters. Then we have the moderately robust herb, wherein the majority of the species belong to this group, and of course, the small to diminutive herb with a height of 1.5 feet high. As to leaf shape and margin, it ranges from entire to undulate to sinuate to subpinnatifid to pinnatifid and low. The inflorescence of alocasia, as mentioned earlier, is a spadix, which is unbranched. The fleshy axis that bears several flowers and subtended by a single bract termed the spathe. The spathe is divided into a convolute thicker lower portion called the lower spathe, which houses the female zone, and the open limb. These two portions are differentiated by a constriction as observed in this photograph. Monoicy occurs in alocasia, which is a derived character. The flowers are actinomorphic and hypogynous. These are the different types of inflorescence observed in the Philippine alocasia. So you would notice that the lower spathe also differs when it comes to shape. Some are globose, some are tubular, some are ovate. Also, the color of the upper limb also differs. In the case of Alocasia sanderiana, it is membranous white, while in some species it is whitish green. In some species it is purplish in color. These are some of the representatives of the Philippine alocasia, showing the arrangement of ovary and type of stigma. So as you would notice, there are some species wherein the ovary are closely spaced to each other, while in some species it is not closely arranged. And then some of the species has style, while in some species, like for example, Alocasia colunensis and Alocasia maquilinensis, it has style. So the color of the stigma also varies from white to purplish white to yellow. The male sterile zone is subcylindric and surrounded by synandria, which differ in size and shape. Most of the species have 4 to 6 merodes and consist of connate truncate stamens. Some species, it is capped with synconnective, while in Alocasia macrorhizos and Alocasia maquilinensis, the vertical pollen thecae are attached throughout the legs to its flanks and reach the top of the synanthrium and open through apical pores. The shape of the synandria sometimes is rhombohexagonal, sometimes it is sinuous, and in some species it is clover shaped. The appendix is sterile, naked, and found in the uppermost part of the spadix. So you would notice that the color also range and the texture also varies. After pollination, only the female part of the spadix and the lower spathe remain and enlarges to accommodate the developing fruits. The fruiting spathe varies in color from ivory white to green, dark green, or purplish green. So the enproctoscence is ovoid, globose, and dehiscing longitudinally to reveal the ripened fruits. So this is the cross-section of the petiole of the alocasia, showing the different tissues. So we have here the epidermis, the parenchyma strand, we have here the parenchymatous, ground tissues, the air chambers, as well as the central vascular strand. So all of the species of alocasia has this type of anatomical characters. So this is just to show some of the examples of the cross-section of the lamina, showing the mesophyll, which is differentiated into a palisaded spongy. And in the case of Alocasia zebrina, latticifers are present, and in some species it is absent. So these are the pollen grains of Philippine Alocasia observed under the light microscope. And you would notice that most of the species of Philippine Alocasia, or all of the species, are of echinate type. When we say echinate type, it is spinous. These spinous exons are specialized for beetle and fly pollination modes and designed for dispersal of insects. So aside from it is echinate, it is also made up of polysaccharides. It is bilaterally symmetrical, monad, apolar, and monosulfate. So I also examined the pollen grains under the scanning electron microscopy, and these are some of my photographs. So the characters that are important in the study of palynology is the size of the pollen grains, the length of the spines, as well as the texture. So another examples, the exon architecture of the pollen grains served under the scanning electron microscopy. Okay, the last part of my study is on molecular, using 4 markers from the chloroplast DNA and the nuclear DNA. So based on my analysis, there are 2 major clades. We have here the Alocasia zebrina clade and the mix, Longiloba, Mycorrhizos, Odora, and Heterophylla group. So I will not discuss this in detail because of time constraints. So this is just to show the position of Philippine Alocasia from the rest of the Alocasia found throughout the world. And based on the study of Neuheimer, he found out that Alocasia mycorrhizos, or the giant taro, or the bajang, which is cultivated in gardens worldwide, originated in the Philippines. So I will just run down some of the species of the Philippine Alocasia. This is Alocasia atropurpurea, found only in Mount Pulis in Buntok. Alocasia boysiana, this is distributed worldwide. Alocasia clipeolata. Alocasia colionensis, found only in Colon, Palawan, as well as in Panay. Alocasia heterophylla, with its very ornamental and very attractive leaf. These are some of the other members of the Alocasia heterophylla complex. The bajang. Some cultivars of Alocasia mycorrhizos. So this one is the edible type of Alocasia mycorrhizos in summer. This is Alocasia maquilinensis. So this is the only species of Alocasia wherein, if you would examine the petiole in the leaf, there are hairs or pubescent. Alocasia mycoliciana, found only in Ifugao and Baguio. And very ornamental. This is the cultivar, Alocasia mycoliciana Fredek. This is the common ones in gardens. Alocasia nectaris, found only in Navas, but last year we found out that this species can also be found in the wild in Romblon. Alocasia portei Ramusii, found only in Makiling. Alocasia sanderiana, found only in Mindanao. Calprum, found in Samar and Surigao. Then we have Sinuata, also found in Samar and Surigao. And of course, Alocasia zebrina, or the tiger Alocasia. So aside from those species, there are still the unresolved or distinct species that needs for further investigation. So we have here Alocasia sarian. This was not described yet. Here the Alocasia macrorhizos from Benguet, and of course the different species of Alocasia zebrina. So we have here Alocasia vinzili, Alocasia tigrina. Then this is the common Alocasia zebrina in Luzon. And then we have the other one, Alocasia reticulata, found only in Zamboanga. This needs further investigation. So this is the Philippine map showing the distribution and number of species of Alocasia in the Philippines. And based on my result, Visayas and Mindanao is the center of distribution of Alocasia continent. I also submitted to IUCN the 3 species of Alocasia which are now critically endangered based on the criteria set by IUCN. So for the conservation status, the updated national list of threatened Philippine plants and their categories, 3 species of Alocasia were assessed. So Alocasia cineriana was assessed as critically endangered, while Alocasia mycoliciana and Alocasia zebrina were assessed as vulnerable. So, however, in spite of this information, some species of Alocasia are still harvested or exploited and being sold in online markets and in gardens. So these are some of the threats, the Philippine Alocasia. And for the conclusion, 15 species of Alocasia are recorded in the Philippines and several species awaits description. Philippine Alocasia can be recognized based on morphology, but anatomy and palynology cannot be used in delimiting taxa. Visayas and Mindanao are the centers of distribution. Alocasia is the most sought taxa because of the appearance of the foliage, hence endangering the decrease of population. And lastly, conservation measures must be implemented to protect the remaining population in the wild. So with that, I would like to acknowledge the different funding institutions who helped me fund this undertaking, and to those several benefactors. So thank you for listening and have a good day.
Thank you very much, Doc Giyang. Thank you very much for sharing with us today your comprehensive studies on Alocasia. Indeed, this group of plants are among the most sought after among plantitos and plantitas. And so, conservation measures must be implemented to protect them. Okay? All right. We move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is a professor at the University of the Philippines, Baguio. She is an outstanding teacher. In fact, she is a recipient of the 2014 Metrobank Foundation Outstanding Teacher Award. She is a prolific researcher. Among her many funded projects is harnessing the potential of plant resources in the Cordillera for drug discovery and promoting the use of indigenous wild plants and underutilized and neglected food crops as alternative food source and livelihood of local communities. Our scientist hero has produced more than 50 publications, a recipient of many awards, including the University of the Philippines Scientist under the UP Scientific Productivity Program. Her other awards include the 2015 Presidential Lingkod Bayan Award, the 2013 Batubalani Award, and the 2016 Outstanding Women Leaders of Baguio City. For her many contributions for the flora conservation, protection, and preservation in the Cordillera Administrative Region, our Begonia Research Group honored our speaker. We name a plant after her. The plant is Begonia balangcodii, found only in Kapangan, Benguet. Friends, let us all welcome Dr. Teodora Balangcod, who will talk on popularizing the stunning Benguet lily, Lilium philippinense, an endemic species in the Cordillera Administrative Region. Doc Dora, you have the virtual stage.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, Ma'am Chip. Actually, I recorded my video presentation, so please proceed. Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. Before I start my share in this event, I would like to thank the organizers of the 2022 International Flores de Mayo Festival, especially Dr. Rosario Rubite and the other organizers. The title of my share this today is Popularizing the Stunning Benguet Lily, an endemic species in the Cordillera Administrative Region, Luzon, Philippines. From my title, you might ask the question, where is the Cordillera Administrative Region? The Cordillera Administrative Region is one of 3 mountain ranges in northern Luzon. It is the largest mountain range. The longest is the Sierra Madre Mountain Range, while the smallest is the Caraballo Mountain Ranges. The Cordillera Central Range is composed of 6 provinces, as you can see on my right side, namely Apayao, Abra, Kalinga, Mountain Province, Ifugao, and Benguet Province. Fortunately, this mountain range is blessed with a semi-temperate climate, which makes it favorable for a diversity of flora and fauna. And also, luckily, we have several species of endemic plants and animals in the region. And one of the endemic plants is what I'm going to present to you today. Firstly, let me give you a description of Benguet lily, or Lilium philippinense. It is a perennial herb reaching a maximum height of 3.4 feet with underground bulb and contractile roots. As you can see from this picture, the leaves are linear and narrow and are alternately arranged along a solitary stem which bears a terminal white flower. So this is the flower of the Benguet lily. Usually, the stalk of the stem of Benguet lilies are singly and bear only 1 flower. But there are some stems that bear 2 flowers, but the latter is rare. It's not common that Benguet lilies, 2 Benguet flowers of Benguet lilies would appear in 1 single stem. So here you can see the Benguet lily with a white flower. Now, the perfect tubular flowers are pure white, as I mentioned. Sometimes in some flowers, it is tinged with brownish streak at the base of the corolla, and this is actually very similar to another lily that is found in the Cordillera. Just a detail of the flowers, it has 6 filaments with yellow anthers, as you can see from here. And very interesting, what is very interesting in this part of the flower is that it emits a fragrant scent, a very fragrant scent during anthesis, or during the time that it starts blooming. Further, it also has a single pistil with this greenish stigma. And again, it is interesting that this one exudes a sticky substance at maturity. It's the one that you see below. The fruit of the Lilium philippinense is actually a capsule. It is green in color when it's not mature, and at maturity, it dehisces and releases more than 100 of flat brown seeds. The dehiscence of the capsule usually occurs from September to November of each year. Hence, this is the time that it is best to collect the seeds for propagation purposes. I would like to share some more interesting facts about Benguet lily. And this is actually will be presented in the following slides. Lilium philippinense was first discovered growing on the mountain slopes of Benguet province along Halsema Highway in 1871 by Wallis, a well-known plant collector and horticulturist then. He got very much interested in the white flowers of this plant, such that he collected some samples and sent them to Baker. And Baker was the first to describe this plant and published it in Gardener's Chronicle, and was followed again and published by Elwes in 1880 in the Journal of Linnean Society Botany. The populations of Lilium philippinense have a very narrow distribution, as you can see here in on the map, and is represented by these dots, by these colorful dots. The populations are not continuous but are fragmented, and they are actually distributed at an elevation range between 754 and 2,155, and it has a narrow distribution in the southwestern part of the Cordillera Central Range. They usually grow on steep mountain slopes, and they grow associated with grasses. And in the following slides, I'll be sharing you some photos that I took when we were having some field work looking for the populations of this species. So you can see here, these are actually populations of Benguet lilies. They are usually located at higher elevations relative to the road. As you can see from here, so this one's, this, and noticeably there are few in number. These were taken along Halsema Highway in Benguet province. This one's too, as you can see there. And then here, while in some parts of Halsema, we can find few plants, while in some parts we also can find them in clusters or in groups, such as in this picture. And this one was actually taken in one area of uh, the Cordillera Central Range, and this was taken along slopes going to Besang Pass, Cervantes. Now, Benguet lilies do not only grow on mountain slopes, but they can also grow on open spaces, and they are very much associated with, closely associated with grass species. And sometimes it's very difficult to find them, especially if they are in their vegetative stage. We were only able to spot the flowers when they were in bloom, and we can smell the scent that the stigma emits. So that's when we are able to find this, especially those that are closely associated with grass species such as the Medotriandra, Imperata cylindica, Miscanthus sinensis, and other low-lying species. Interestingly, the bulbs are buried in the crevices of rocks here, as you can see in this picture. And it was really very, very difficult for us to get samples of the bulbs because they are way on the crevices, no, in the rocks. Now, the flowers of Lilium philippinense is morphologically similar to other two Lilium species that are found in the region, namely Lilium formosanum and Lilium longiflorum, which are endemic to Taiwan and Japan respectively, and which are also growing well in the Cordillera Administrative Region. Sometimes or oftentimes, horticulturists and other florists regard these three lilies as the same species and sometimes refer to them interchangeably. Why? Because they very much are similar. However, for a taxonomist, we can always spot the difference. So this is a flower of Lilium philippinense. This one is a flower of Lilium formosanum. It has actually streaks of violet and sometimes brown on the floral tube. And for Lilium longiflorum, these usually occur in clusters in a single stem. It is also pure white in color, and the leaves are much broader and shorter relative to the leaves of Lilium formosanum and Lilium philippinense. Interestingly, because of the white, delicate flowers and fragrance of Lilium philippinense, it is often a favorite adornment for weddings and other special occasions. That's why they are being collected from their natural habitat. The local names of Lilium philippinense, which are given in different dialects, also give an interesting description of the plant. For example, canyon or luplupak in Ilocano. Canyon actually is a bomb. It refers to a bomb, illustrating the somewhat explosive dehiscence of the seed of Lilium philippinense when they are mature. And in Mountain Province, the Kankanais called this flower as ususdong, which means in the local dialect tubaw, referring to the pendulous flowers of the plant. And among the Ibaloys, another minority group, they call the flowers as suwasoy, or among the Ikalahans, they call it suyusoy, which means to sway, referring to the flowers that beautifully sway with the wind. Now, what is the conservation status of Lilium philippinense? Before then, let me give you some background of the populations. In 1880, Elwes reported that populations of this species occur in hundreds. So when he first found them along Halsema Highway, they occur in hundreds per cluster. However, recent observations show that a cluster is composed only of approximately 10 to 50 individuals or less. That's actually half of the population before, or less, or even less. And of late, while we were doing our field work, information from the local people affirms that the Benguet lilies are no longer as many as they used to be in their natural habitat. So we tried to identify the factors that contribute to the decline of L. philippinensis populations, and accordingly, Madulid in 2002 reported that the populations have declined due to anthropogenic activities such as overcollection. I mentioned a while ago that these are being used as ornamental plants and as favorite decorations on special occasions. And in 2009, yours truly was able to identify that one of the factors that's causing the decline in the population of this species is the destruction of its habitat. And we noticed a rampant land conversion because of urbanization and a road widening. Recently, in 2017, the DNR declared this species as vulnerable, as you can see from here. This category C, vulnerable, and this is actually can be found in DAO, or DNR Administrative Order number 2017-11. Okay, so it is vulnerable according to the DNR. And when we try to see what is vulnerable, it refers to a species or subspecies, varieties, forma, or other infraspecific categories of plants that is not critically endangered nor endangered, but is under threat from adverse factors throughout its range and is likely to move to the endangered category in the future. This shall include varieties, forma, or other infraspecific categories. So that in summary, Lilium philippinensis populations are distributed narrowly at the southern part of the Cordillera Central Range, and with the increasing threats on this species and its narrow distribution, conservation strategies are indispensable. With its declining population, a conservation effort on this species is essential and a challenge especially to conservationists. And with that, I would like to thank everyone for listening, and thank you again to the organizers of this event for inviting me to present a paper.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doc Balangkod, for sharing with us today the stunning and fragrant Lilium philippinensis. We hope that your studies will further enlighten more Filipinos on the conservation of this narrow, endemic, vulnerable Philippine species. All right. So, here at the Zoom room, now we are joined by two of our speakers. We have here Dr. Balangkod and Sir Fernando, and they will join us for the Q&A. While Dr. Young sent me a message earlier this morning. So she said, "Ma'am Cheat, I am already in a boulder. You see, she is now in Mount Apo, the highest peak of Luzon, doing botanical expedition." Okay? So, she said, I am now already in a boulder, but still there is very low signal. I may not be able to enter the Zoom room later. Okay? So if there are questions for Doc Giang, we will send your questions to her later via email. Okay? So, let's look at some of the questions. For Sir Fernando, how is your experience in producing hybrids from wild endemic flowers? Sir Nanding, you are there?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. First of all, I am not successful in hybridization of Hoya, but my friend Mr. Reynold Pimentel has produced a lot of hybrid Hoyas. However, I was able to produce hybrids of Musaenda, Doña, okay, using the conventional breeding methods. But since my work is at the Philippine Nuclear Research Institute, what I'm doing is to enhance the genetic makeup or create mutants of our native species. So that's what I am doing, creating new varieties by gamma irradiation. I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Nanding. Okay, so here we have a question for Ma'am Dora. What are the measures conducted by the local government or the non-government organization with regards to conservation, protection, and preservation of the Benguet lily?
Thank you, thank you, Ma'am Chit. Well, as far as I know, there is no specific policy regarding Lilium philippinense, but the DNR has released non-collection of this species, and they are preventing the sellers to buy, the consumers or the end users to not to buy these animals and plants as well. So they prevent the people to buy them.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Ma'am Dora. Sir Nanding, is the 2022 Philippine Hoya calendar still available?
I'm sorry, it's
where
already sold out.
Oh,
It ran out in less than a month's time. There were only 1,000 copies produced, but it's underestimated. There were lots of interested buyers because it turned out to be a very good calendar and collectible item. Hopefully, the PNP-CSI would produce the 2023 version. So wait for it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And we thank PNP-CSI for coming up with this opportunities of laymanizing and popularizing our endemic plants. Okay. Okay, what else?
Dr. Rubite. Yes, maybe request Mr. Auriga to set aside a few number of those calendars next year in time for our festival. Yeah, no, I just want to signify our interest, no, to such a lovely calendar. Thank you for that, Mr. Rupano.
Thank you. Let's ask PNP-CSI to produce a lot more, not just 1,000 pieces, but maybe even 3,000.
Right.
Even foreigners wanted to buy that, and through that calendar, a lot of people become informed or educated about our native Philippine Hoyas.
I think that is one of the mandates of funding agencies, diba? That the research projects should be able to produce a tangible output that would popularize the output of or the result of the research.
Yes,
So,
that's true.
how about you, Ma'am Dora? Do you encounter problems in dealing with local or the indigenous people in your research? Have you encountered?
No. Ma'am Chit, actually I'm one of them. So actually nakiki-associate naman ako sa kanila and wala pa naman ako na-encounter na problems with these communities.
But usually for us scientists, our major problem at the start of our research is usually obtaining permits. So how about you? Was it easy for you to obtain permits there?
Yes, I actually go to the NCIP, and for my projects under the DOST, actually the DOST region helped me obtain permits from this office. And what I do usually is to go directly to the LGU and ask permission.
Okay, this is for our two researchers. At the beginning of your research, what were the problems that you encountered and how were you able to resolve these problems?
I'll answer first.
Okay, Sir Nanding.
Okay, of course, the first problem I encountered is funding or the approval of the project proposal.
That's common.
The funding agency do not know the genus. They don't know about Hoya plants.
Oh.
But because that's my justification is that because it is an unknown genus, not all Filipinos know about that, but it's our plant genetic resources. I am sure that we could produce a lot of information because nobody's studying it, except during the time the late Dr. Simeon CR, but they do not know the impact to the society, if it will create jobs or livelihood. And that's why they made sure that I will conduct training so that the plants will not be harvested from the habitat, but instead it will be propagated. And this propagation will ensure that other interested people will not go back to the natural habitat to obtain these plants. However, due to the interest that it created, a lot of researchers also applied for gratuitous permit from DNR in order to collect new specimens, these new species that were discovered. So I think that's the main problem. If you will be able to convince the funding agency that it's worth the money that they will provide, I am sure they will provide the funds. That's how I found it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Nadine. Yes, Ma'am Dora?
Actually, the same problem also, the funding, no, for especially for these kinds of researches. Actually, I wanted to pursue conservation efforts on Benguet lily, but looks like I was disappointed because even if we have several proposals made, these were rejected by funding agencies. So I opted to take the offer on medicinal plants instead. But I do hope that students will be able to take on from what I have left, like the Benguet lily actually is very difficult to propagate. So I recommend that this be propagated through micropropagation. So I just hope that somebody will take on.
I'm sure you will inspire, or you had already inspired a lot of our young students there at UP Baguio. Okay, so we still have some speakers. So Cha or Gab, can you show us the certificate?
Yes, Corey, I think we can proceed. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so let me read. The Faura Project Incorporated with Philippine Botanical Arts Society and the University of the Philippines, Manila presents this certificate of appreciation to sa speakers na natin. Yung speakers na natin. Fernando Auregue and another speaker, Melanie Giyang and Theodora Balangkod for speaking on the titles that they have already given us, given this second day of May 2022 during the conference plenary on celebrating heroes in heritage endemic during the 2022 International Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference. Signed, Dr. Hani Libertine Achanzar-Labor, the Executive Director of the Faura Project Incorporated, Convener. Ang liit, hindi ko na mabasa. Sorry, Hani. Next signatory, Miss... Is this Willia?
Can I read it for you?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
Thank you, Levi.
Sure. So that would be Miss Willa Famoso Takan, President and Founder of the Philippine Botanical Arts Society, who I know is also with us, who is still with us right now, and Professor Alice Adeva, Chair of the Department of Arts and Communication, College of Arts and Sciences, University of the Philippines, Manila. There you go, Chit.
Thank you, Levi. Okay, so Cha or Gab, who will be in charge of our photo op?
Yes, okay. Thank you so much for Dr. Rubite. So now we will be having a picture with our speakers. So, Mr. Ariga, is it okay po if you turn on your camera first? If it's possible.
Sorry, I think the camera on my laptop just malfunctioned.
Yes. Oh, it's okay po. No worries. It's okay. Sige po, let me just fix the...
I think we also acknowledge the presence of Dr. Buot. I saw his name earlier.
Yes, right.
Buot, are you still there? In the Sensio Buot, I saw his name.
And perhaps also Miss Bing Famoso, if you're still here.
Okay.
Maybe they can join us pa later for our next session. Oh, there! Mr. Buot is here. You can join our picture po. Sige, let's flash our biggest smiles. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, sige po. Thank you so much po to our speakers and of course to you, Dr. Rubite. Okay, so I hand the floor back to you po, Dr. Rubite.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you too.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next speaker obtained her Bachelor of Science in Biology and Master of Science in Biological Sciences at the University of Santo Tomas. Her Doctor Rerum Naturalium, which is the Latin for Doctor of Natural Sciences from the University of Beirut. Very young, but she has already produced almost 30 publications, including the 2022 Coraibas Caiganganianus of the family Orchidaceae, a new and rare helmet orchid from Samar Island, Philippines. Our scientist hero has led various multi-million research, including the recently concluded assessment, inventory, and biological field survey of flora and fauna of the mangrove forest in Del Carmen, Siargao Island. She has held various positions at UST, In fact, she is the immediate past college secretary of the College of Science. Currently, she is the curator of the UST Herbarium, resident researcher of the Research Center for the Natural and Applied Sciences Thomas Aquinas Research Center, professor of the Department of Biological Sciences, and the executive assistant for research operations and management of the Office of the Vice Rector for Research and Innovation. Friends, let us all welcome Dr. Cecilia Banag-Moran to talk about Philippine Ixora, getting to know our flame of the woods. Doc says you have the floor.
Good day to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to be one of the speakers for this event. Today, I will be sharing with you some information about our very own Philippine Ixoras, as well as how this plant has helped me in many aspects of my life. I am Cecilia Moran from the University of Santo Tomas, and this genus is special to me as this was the main topic of my PhD dissertation not too long ago. Now, I'm sure that most, if not all of those present here are familiar with this plant. You've probably seen this planted in your own backyard or your neighbor's backyard as fence or planted in schools or churches. Now, some of us here might also have tried or experienced sipping the sweet nectar of the flowers, just like the child in the picture. Now, this plant, Ixora, is also more commonly known as santan in many dialects in the Philippines, or flame of the woods, because of its showy red colored flowers. Now, this flower is also used as bouquet for a centered table or offerings in altars, and also in the provinces during Flores de Mayo. The flowers of Ixora are used by children as offering to the Blessed Virgin Mary. Now, the genus name Ixora is thought to be derived from the Sanskrit Isvara or Isvari, the name of the Hindu goddess to whom the flowers of Ixora are offered in Indian temples. Now, the specific epithet, Coccinea, the type specimen of this genus, came from a Latin word meaning scarlet or bright red, in reference to the flower color of the plant. Now, the first record of usefulness of Ixora species was reported by Baker in 1936, stating that in Sri Lanka, the flowers of Ixora were used as offerings for the Hindu god Shiva. And aside from its ornamental purposes, several Ixora species were also recorded or reported having medicinal value. Now, based on personal interview and literature search and information that I've gathered from the labels of herbarium specimens that I have studied, indigenous use of Ixora is not common in the Philippines. The cultivated Ixora coccinea was more commonly encountered or used for cure of bronchitis, dysentery, and hypertensions, as well as dysmenorrhea. And the diluted tincture of the roots are used as gargles for sore throat, and the root decoction as sedative in treating nausea, hiccups, and loss of appetite. Now, the macerated fresh leaves and stems of Ixora coccinea are used to heal sprains, eczema, and boils. And Decoction of leaves are used for wound healing and treating skin ulcers. Now, for the other species, Ixora macrophylla, the fruits are rubbed on the body when a person is sick, and the roots are mixed with the betel plant and chewed as remedy for headache. Also, the wood of Ixora macrophylla are believed or are used as firewood and also as constructing materials. Another species, Ixora longifolia, is as well as Ixora macrophylla, are noted by some collectors being used in agricultural rituals in Zamboanga del Norte. Now, you might be more familiar with the cultivated species of Ixora, Ixora coccinea, or what we commonly call as santan pula. We have the Ixora chinensis, the yellow santan, and the fragrant santan puti, or the Ixora fidlaisaniana. But did you know that we have 34 indigenous species, and out of these 34 species or indigenous species, 29 are endemic endemic to the Philippines. Now, for the habit, a general shrubby habit is common in Philippine Ixora, and most species are described as small or medium-sized shrubs. Now, in several species, both shrub and tree habits occur, like Ixora macrophylla, which represents the largest among the endemic Philippine species of Ixora, reaching up to 15 meters in height. The stems are cylindrical and at least somewhat corky, as shown in the picture. And among the species of Ixora, Ixora latensis are observed to be hairy. Okay, or the young twigs of these species are observed as hairy or puberulent, and most species are often glabrous or have the absence of hairs in the young shoots. Now, as shown in the figure, the stipules are interpetular, or in between the leaves of two opposite leaves of Ixora or of the plant, and the stipules can be truncate. Also, it can be triangular or broadly ovate, as the species of Ixora crassifolia. Now, these shapes of the stipules are also important in distinguishing groups of Ixora species. Then, this on is usually topped by a narrow bifid or rarely bifid or on of the stipules. Now, the leaf arrangement is usually opposite and decussate. All Philippine species are petiolate or with petioles, except for Ixora auriculata and some populations of Ixora philippinensis, which possess sessile and cordate or stem clasping leaves, as shown in the pictures. Now, for the size, among the Philippine Ixora, the leaf blades vary from 4 to 40 centimeter in length. So, and in terms of width, from 0.5 to 1.8 centimeter. For the Philippine species, smallest leaves are observed in Angustilimba, and the longest in Ixora salicifolia, and the widest in Ixora bartlingiana. Now, among the Philippine Ixora, the leaf blade, the inflorescence are always terminal. Okay, this character is or the position of this inflorescence term is carried mainly on secondary branches. Okay, now Sometimes they can be found in short made of successive short internodes. And one condition, the cauliflory or the caulifloris flowers, is observed in one of the species of Philippine Ixora. We have the Ixora macrophylla. They were in the flowers, okay, are found in the branches or in the stem. Now, aside from being always terminal, the inflorescences may be sessile or pedunculate. Okay, so the length of the peduncle, okay, is very variable even within species. So we cannot rely on the length of the peduncle to be able to distinguish the species, because even in the same species, the length of the peduncle varies in Ixora. Now, also fundamental differences that exist between pedunculate and sessile inflorescence is the presence or absence, as well as the shape and the size of the inflorescence leaves, and also the structure of the first order bracts that is present in the inflorescence. Okay, so this is also one character that should be noted in different species, especially those with pendulous flowers. We have these inflorescence supporting leaves. Now, another character of major importance for the recognition of specific at the specific level for the Philippine Ixora is the structure of the terminal or ultimate flower triad. Now, the flowers in a triad may be sub-sessile or sessile, or shortly pedicellate rather. Okay. Now also the pedicels of the central flower in a triad can be as long as the pedicels of the central flower or the lateral flowers, or it could be sessile, the central flower is sessile, or shorter than the pedicels of the lateral ones. So these are the types of arrangement of the ultimate flower triad of the different species of Ixora. Now, calyx slopes differ considerably in shapes, size, and degree of basal overlap in the species. And in studying the different, or in identifying the different species of Ixora, we also have to look into these details of their calyx lobes. Okay, and the lobes may be shortly apiculate, like Ixora macrophylla. We also have a narrowly broad triangular calyx lobes. We also have spectacular calyces, like the ones that appears in Ixora Alejandroi and Ixora Reynaldoi, wherein their calyx lobes can reach up to 10 millimeters in length. Now, the stigma is a bilobe, and length of the lobes varies between species. Okay, it can reach as long as 4 millimeters, and usually the lobes of the stigma are recurving, just like in the picture, and others may also have a straight stigmatic lobes, and rarely we have stigmatic arms that are shortened or rounded, just like the Ixora alejandroi. Okay, this is only observed in some species in India, and specifically for Ixora alejandroi in the Philippines. Now, Ixora fruits are small, subglobose, and somewhat transversely flattened drupes. Now, the color of the fruits usually turning from green to red and purple to pink, like in Ixora macrophylla and Ixora philippinensis, and eventually turning black when or during maturation or during when they are when they are mature. Now, also in the Philippine Ixora species, the corollas are usually white or white tinged with pink or tinged with red, and more rarely orange uh, to pink or yellow in color. So mostly our cultivated species, sila yung yellow, yung pink ang color or yung orange. Mostly of our native species or wild species have white, red, and white tinged with pink or tinged with red in color. Now, in terms of habitat, the genus Ixora is essentially a rainforest genus. And in the Philippines, 23 out of the 34 species occurs in lowland forest, and only 4 species or very few species are found growing in mossy forests or in higher elevation. But it's a good indicator that if you will find Ixora in one area, it is also an indicator that the area is still ecologically balanced, or the place is still a good habitat for other organisms. Now, also, if you would still find a few population of Ixora, it could be an indicator of that the place is a remnant of a primary forest. Now, also some species prefer wet habitats and are found near rivers, just like when we collected this Ixora salicifolia in Surigao. They could be found also near the shore, most especially yung Ixora cumingiana. Its habitat is always it's more commonly collected near the shores. Okay. Now, also some species would prefer dry ground and rarely occurs in wet habitats. So these are of like the Ixora gigantifolia in Leyte and Samar. They usually found in inland forests. Now, in terms of the distribution, in the Philippines, most Ixora species are concentrated in Luzon, now based on the records that we have gathered. So from Batanes and up to Palawan, or including Palawan and Luzon. Now, with the highest species diversity occurring in Palawan, with 11 species to be recorded in the province, followed by Quezon Province with 9 species, and Cagayan and Bataan with 5 species. For Visayas, Antique has the most number of Ixora with 5 recorded species, and in Mindanao, we have the most number of species recorded in Surigao del Sur with 7 species, and Agusan del Norte with 5. Now, among the Philippine Ixora species, 4 species are widely distributed, meaning they can be found from Luzon to Visayas and Mindanao. So we have Ixora bartlingii, cumingiana, and macrophylla, and philippinensis. Among these 4 species, yung tatlo pedunculate. Only Ixora philippinensis yung sessile to subsessile, or shortly pedunculate yung kanyang inflorescence. Now, in this part of my presentation, let me just share with you very quickly how this plant, Ixora, have been an integral part of my career and in my life in general. To make it short, let me use the letters in the word Ixora to summarize um, my presentation. So I stands for the Ixora species that I discovered together with my students, colleagues, and mentors and collaborators. We have Ixora silagoensis, which was named after the locality, Silago later, where it was collected. We also have Ixora alejandroi, which I named after my mentor, Dr. Eusebio Jonathan Alejandro, who also introduced me to the field of systematics or plant taxonomy or plant systematics. And lastly, Ixora Reynaldo, which I named after my late biological father, Reynaldo Panag. Now, currently we are writing the descriptions of two possible new species. One was collected in Mindanao and the other one collected in Luzon. So hopefully we'll be able to finish the description and be able to publish this additional two new species of Ixora this year. X, it lang, so we have to excel in your craft. And as a researcher, I also had to deal with a lot of challenges and difficulties in doing my research in Ixora, but with the help of my mentors and with the giants of Philippine biodiversity and the field of botany, I was able to make progress one step at a time. Okay, so these are just some of the renowned Filipino scientists and botanists who have helped me or inspired me in one way or the other and helped me to continue my research on Ixora. Okay, and most, if not all of them, are also familiar with you. Opportunities to travel. So I was able to conduct fieldworks in different parts of the country in search for the species of Ixora. So, totoo yan in my case, my friends don't ask me, how are you? But they would rather ask me, where are you? Okay, especially during the peak of my fieldworks in looking for the different species of Ixora. So just to share with you some of the photos that I've taken, gathered, collected through the years during my fieldworks and looking for yung iba, hindi na Ixora, yung iba, nagko-collect na rin kami ng gingers and other species that are problematic in terms of their taxonomy. Okay, in some fieldworks, I was invited by colleagues from the Philippine National Museum and other institutions, collaborators or partners to join them to do some field works in different in Luzon, in Visayas, and in Mindanao. Okay, so these are some of the or big expeditions that I have joined in Mindanao and in Visayas. Okay, and other fieldworks conducted together with students. Now also, I was able to visit other countries for studies and as well as visiting major herbaria that holds major big collections of Ixora species. And also, I was able to do research and at the same time teach undergraduate and graduate students. Now, just to share these are some of the graduate students that I have mentored during their master's and PhD studies. And all of them were also, as I can call them, my academic sons and daughters. And also, game talaga sila mag-fieldwork. Okay, in search of the plants they're studying for their thesis and dissertation. And here are some of the undergraduate students that I have mentored also. Some of them work with Ixora and some have worked with other plants under family Rubiaceae and Singiberaceae. And lastly, bonus for my passion for research in Ixora, awards and recognitions. As somebody said, the awards are confirmation that I am doing something right. in this lifetime. Okay, so with that, I would like to end my presentation and would like to thank you for listening. And I would like to acknowledge also the owners of some of the photos that I've used in this presentation. Thank you very much and good day to everyone.
Thank you very much, Doc Moran, for sharing with us today your comprehensive work on our Philippine Exora. Yes, you reminded me of my days when I was at the province. I grew up in the province with my grandmother. So, talagang ginagawa ko yon. Sinisip-sip ko yung nectar ng Corolla tube ng santad. At mabubusog ka na doon kasi ang dami-dami. Around the backyard and front yards of houses in the provinces, there are a lot of santan. So that was already our junk food before, the nectar of flowers. So thank you very much, Doc Moran. All right. We are very fortunate that we have Doc Moran here in the Zoom room. So she will answer your questions later. Okay? Our last speaker is a prolific researcher and has produced almost 100 scientific publications. Her main research interests are on the systematics, ecology, and conservation of Philippine plants such as orchids, cycads, rafflesia, and vascular epiphytes. She is also interested in the floristics and ecology of forests over limestone and ultramafic soils, and the canopy stratum of forests. Her collaborative research involves investigations on medicinal and other useful plants. She has also special interest on historical botany. She is a member of the International Union for Conservation of Nature, or IUCN, Species Survival Commission, cycad and orchid specialist groups, and a board member of the Flora Malaysiana Foundation. At De La Salle University, she teaches botany, systematics, and biodiversity conservation. She also maintains the university herbarium and started the plant DNA bank and seed bank at DLSU Science and Technology Research Center. She is also involved in the development of the La Salle Botanical Gardens. Our scientist hero is an alumna of UP Manila, specifically at the College of Arts and Sciences, BS Biology program. She was my student before. But when I took up my PhD at De La Salle, she became my teacher and my mentor. Friends, let us all welcome Dr. Esperanza Maribel Agoo, who would talk on epiphytic Philippine orchids, plant on trees. Take away, Doc Maribel.
Some of the plants that bear delightful and beautiful flowers around us originate from the forest, found not on the ground but clinging for dear life on stems and branches of tall trees far from our sight and reach. I'm Maribel Agoo, and let me give you a glimpse of these plants on trees, or literally plants that enjoy the high life. Epiphytes are plants that grow in trees. They stay on treetops to get enough light for them to still be able to produce their own food. Thus, these do not depend on their tree host for food. They also draw water provided by smaller plants that serve as sponges and soft pads where these epiphytes rest. There are epiphytes that grow roots from the tree tops down until they become rooted in the soil, like some figs. On the other hand, many plants grow from the soil, clinging around stems, eventually reaching the tree tops. These are called climbers. There are also what we call lianas, which develop thick and woody stems like gugo or entada fascioloides. Some of these on their way to the top lose their connection from the ground, like the aroids and the Freycinetius of climbing pendants. Mistletoes, however, are parasitic as they draw or steal their food and water from their host tree. Initially, though, they photosynthesize or produce their own food, but later plunder the tree of its resources. Epiphytes and similar plants comprise about 10% of the world's flora. For the Philippines, aside from the mosses, liverworts, as well as lichens, these epiphytes are composed of pteridophytes and lycophytes, or ferns and their relatives, which is represented by about 250 species in 20 families. Examples of this are Anthophyum, or the line leaf fern, Pyrotia of the polypod family, Gynaria, the oak leaf fern, which gather detritus as additional nutrition for the plant, Halopteris, Hupersia, or the tassel fern. There are about 1,000 species of monocots in 7 families. These include climbing aroids like Epipremnum. There's also an epiphytic ginger under the genus Hedychium. There are about 1,000 species in 50 families of dicots. The Dischidias get their nutrition delivered by ants. Thus, aptly, these are called ant plants. The Medinilias in their natural habitat are epiphytic. There are about 80 species recorded in the Philippines. But the most celebrated of these are the orchids. The orchid flora of the Philippines is composed of about 1,200 species and varieties in at least 130 genera. This comprise about 10 to 15% of the Philippine flora, of which 66% are endemic. And of all of this, 80% live on trees. Bulbophyllum is one of the genera. Around 1/5 of the orchids of the Philippines belong to this genus. At least 200 species are so far known for the country. Most of the species are found in very high altitudes. The flowers are from the most showy to the most conspicuous or inconspicuous. Some bulbophyllums are segregated by some taxonomists into a separate group called the Ceropetalum, which are actually quite distinct, with its flowers gathered in the center into an umbel type of inflorescence. The name of the genus refers to the long extensions of the lateral sepals. An example of this is Bulbophyllum cumingii. These are widespread in the Philippines and are also found outside of the country. It is categorized as an endangered species in the Philippine Threatened Plants list. Some species of Bulbophyllum, however, are very small and have unattractive flowers. An example of this is Bulbophyllum maquilingense, which bear dark-colored, hooded-like flowers. This species particularly is attached in the lower part of the trunks of trees. This occurs at low elevations, or about 500 meters above sea level. This species, though originally discovered in Mount Makiling, is found in other parts of Southeast Asia. It is classified as an endangered species. This is another Bulbophyllum, which is similar to the Makiling type, but is a bit more attractive with its bright red flowers. Here is another species which is minute. Its flowers are smaller than the pseudobulbs. Bulbophyllum cephaloforum belongs to a different section, Demosanthis, which has flowers clustered in the middle, held by a short rachis. The flowers are not ciliate and the lip is undivided. This species is endemic and rare, known only from where it was discovered in Nueva Ecija. Bulbophyllum laxiflorum belongs to the same section, the specific name alluding to the loose flowered inflorescence. This orchid has thick or leathery leaves. The flowers have very long sepals and exude a fragrant, musky scent. It is found in lowland forests to about 1,000 meters above sea level. It is not endemic. The second largest group of orchids is the Dendrochilum, with about at least 130 species, with a wide range of distribution found in low to high mountains. Flowers are tightly packed to form a whip-like or semi-arching inflorescence. One example of this is Dendrochilum wenzilei, which has many variants. This is the orange one, yellow, red, brown. The distinguishing character of this is its lip, which has 3 lobes with the middle one, which is sac-like. Its leaf is thick and leathery. It is found in the mossy forest of Luzon to Mindanao from the lowlands about 1,800 meters above sea level. Dendrochilum cottesii is one of the most beautiful of this. Flowers are closely packed, sepals and petals are twisted or curled, and it is found only in the forests of Luzon. Same as Dendrochilum anfractum, it is endemic, confined to the Cordilleras at over 2,000 meters altitude. Another large genus of orchids is Dendrobium, with at least 130 species. Dendrobium macrophyllum variety ternatense has very large leaves. The sepals and petals and pedicel are hairy, with a sweet, long-lasting fragrance. It is, however, not endemic. Dendrobium ghirlandianum is mainly epiphytic but sometimes lithophytic and terrestrial. It is a lowland species endemic to the Philippines but widely distributed in the country. Dendrobium serratilabium is also known as sawtooth lip dendrobium. The flowers arise from leafless stems and canes, and it is endemic to the Philippines, found in low montane forests to about 1,200 meters above sea level. The single-flowered Dendrobium uniflorum is widely distributed in the country and could be found also in other parts or in other countries of Southeast Asia. Dendrobium sanderae has showy, long-leaf flowers. This is endemic, found throughout the archipelago in forests up to 1,700 meters above sea level. It is assessed as a vulnerable species. The amethyst-colored lip of this orchid is a basis for naming it as Dendrobium amethystoglosum. Its flowers are long-lasting. It is found in the high mountains of Luzon. The Phalaenopsis genus or moth orchids are composed of about 30 species. Phalaenopsis aphrodite is similar to Phalaenopsis amabilis. It has those slightly smaller flowers. It is found in very high mountains and is considered as a vulnerable species. Phalaenopsis pallens is endemic to the Philippines, but with a widespread distribution that is from Luzon, Mindanao, Palawan. Found in low altitudes and is considered as an endangered species. Phalaenopsis deliciosa is also found outside of the Philippines. It is found in mountains to about 800 meters above sea level. Phalaenopsis tuartiana has spectacular blooms. Inflorescence may carry as many as 100 flowers, which are faintly fragrant. It is confined to Mindanao at low elevations. It is classified as an endangered species. Coelogene confusa is isolated or confined only in Camigan Island. It is also epilithic at low elevations, considered as an endangered species. Similarly, Coelogene asperata is fragrant but short-lived. It is not endemic to the Philippines. Here, it occurs at low altitudes. Related to the dendrobiums are the trichototias, which have very hairy petals and sepals and stalks. This is an example, Trichototia lagunensis, which is endemic to the Philippines, particularly confined to Laguna. Epigenium is also related to the dendrobiums. This is named as such with lateral sepals fused with the column foot. This is Epigenium acuminatum, which has very long inflorescence, about 50 cm long, with fragrant and long-lasting flowers. This is endemic, found only in Luzon and Mindoro. There are about 14 species of Aerides in the Philippines. One recently described species is Aerides hutesii, which is very similar to Aerides odorata, found only in Linapacan, Palawan, in forests about 300 meters above sea level. Ceratostylus retisquama is quite unique, with its pseudobulbs wrapped with very dark brown sheath. It grows as dense mats in its natural habitat. It is endemic but widespread within the country. This used to be called Ascocentrum aurantiaca, but now it is classified under the strap orchids of Vanda. Now it's called Vanda aurantiaca, subspecies Philippinensis. It is found in Luzon and Mindanao in forest to about 1,200 meters above sea level. The genus Eria is a big group with very varied morphological characteristics. That's why it was recommended to split this into smaller groups. The genus Leparis has about 30 species, Pinalia with about 30 species, Appendicula with almost the same number of species, Oberonia thexpermum also with about 30 species. The threats to this species include indiscriminate logging and conversion of forests to other land uses. Though what could be more obvious with this is that the trees are the ones that are pushed out. But as these trees go, plants on these trees also go. But the most apparent, observable threat is the legal and illegal trade of these plants. In the past 6 months of monitoring this threat, we have documented and identified at least 300 specimens of wild plants traded in open public markets in Metro Manila. During the pandemic, many have turned to plants to cope with the situation, thus a trend of plant parents, even among the younger generation. However, we should realize that there is a huge responsibility that goes with plant parenting. But overcoming plant blindness is already a good first step towards assuming this responsibility. I acknowledge the De La Salle University Research Coordination Office, the Commission on Higher Education, and Forest Foundation Philippines for supporting our research on epiphytes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Agoo, for sharing with us today our epiphytic flora, especially the many beautiful orchids. I would like to reiterate the message of Mom Maribel to the neo plant lovers or the so-called plant parents. There is huge responsibility that goes with plant parenting. But overcoming plant blindness is already a good first step towards assuming this responsibility. Thank you very much, Doc Agoo. Yes, indeed. Sana nga maging responsable ang mga bagong plant parents. Okay? Earlier, Dr. Agoo sent me a message that she has a class and unfortunately she cannot join us. So we will have questions that can be answered by all the members of the panel, including Dr. Balangkod, Sir Aurege, Doc Moran can help us answer the questions. Okay? Sige. Who would like to ask the first question?
Hi po, Dr. Rubite and to our panel. So we received a few questions on the Zoom chat box. So allow me to read our very first question. So this question is directed to any of our speakers. So the question is, what should a non-botanist do if he or she encounters a species of a flower that looks unique? So again, the question is, what should a non-botanist do if he or she encounters a species of a flower that looks unique? So anyone can answer this one.
First, I would like to correct Charisse. Please use the term species.
Species. Yes, got that.
Singular and plural. Okay? So there is no such word as species. Okay? Let's use the term species. Okay. Again, let's proceed. Ses, would you like to answer that?
Medyo mahina lang po yung medyo napuputol po yung voice kanina ni Charisse. Can you repeat the question?
Sige po, Ms. Cecil. Okay, so the question is, what should a non-botanist do if he or she encounters a species of a flower that looks unique?
Medyo mahirap yan. Honestly, even the experts or yung mga renowned botanists, experienced botanists na rin, if we encounter species that are unique, if we think that it's unique, we usually document that by taking photos, okay? And if we are also legally allowed to collect samples, the protocol for collection would be first is to check whether kung mga small plants lang ito like mga herbs or you have to check first yung population kung madami pa kasi baka very few lang yung population. Ang recommended is 1:20. If there are 20 individuals, you can collect one. If yung kailangan mo i-uproot yung halaman. Because some of the characters that will be helpful for you in identifying the plants or describing it, you need to do it in the laboratory. So you have to collect some samples for herbarium specimens. So yung confirmation that if that is really new species or a unique species, you'll be able to confirm it later on siguro after doing further morphological studies. So kung nandun ka na, naka-encounter ka na, you have to document everything, yung from the vegetative parts to the reproductive parts. If you're a botanist, you have to invest also with a good camera with a high resolution. So hindi na masyadong mamahalin ng mga ibang gamit ng botanist, but you have to invest in a good camera to document the specimen. So pati yung mga colors, etc. So usually ganun yung ginagawa. We take down notes also kung ano yung mga sa tingin namin ay unique na characters dun sa plant. So we write down also the habitat where the plant is observed. So yun yung so basically taking down the characters and taking down all the important unique characters that we have seen. So eventually, if more details are needed, we have to get some specimens to observe that in the laboratory for confirmation.
Thank you, Doc Ses. Let me just add, Charisse. Recently, because of this pandemic, a lot of our plantitos and plantitas would send photographs. They would send photographs to the specialists. Like for example, I received several emails showing me photographs of begonias that they have seen. Some are grown in pots. Some are really from the wild, from the forest. Okay, so the specialist would make an initial identification of the plant and would tell the neoplant lover regarding the plant that he has found. So a good thing that is being done now is that these plant lovers consult. They would write to the people who are studying this plant. That is based on my experience.
So, Dr. Rubite, if ever, any of our audience member here, if ever may mahanap silang bagong species ng plant na sa tingin nila ay bago, they can email you po or Ms. Moran, they can send you an email. Sige po.
Yes, that usually happens. Diba, Doc Ses, after our conference, we receive emails.
Yes, thank you so much po. This Mr. Arige also want to answer po this question, or can we proceed to the next question?
Yes, I believe Ma'am Ses gave the answers that I'm also going to tell. Thank you very much. Please proceed to the other question.
Cha, what's the next question?
Okay, so our next question po, again from the audience is, knowing that Nilad is a mangrove, can one propagate this in one's backyard? If yes, may we ask how? So again, the question is, knowing that Nilad is a mangrove, can one propagate this in one's backyard? If yes, may we ask how?
Yeah, I think this is in the context of our talks this morning, right? And
yes.
We're talking about the etymology of the name Manila, to the Nilad flower. So in our wanting to conserve or to help conserve it, because it used to abound in Manila and not anymore. So I guess that's the context of the question, right, Jack?
Yes, po. Yes, Dr. Achanzar-Labor.
Doc Ses, would you like to answer that? You had experience on doing mangrove research in Siargao.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, I think the species can also be grown in the backyard, but there are also some mangrove associate species that can also be grown in outside its natural habitat. So yung mga ex situ conservation. Conservation is also successful in growing it outside mangrove area. So I think if if you have the proper knowledge of the requirements needed by the plant, I think kasi yung Scyphifora is also closely related with Ixora. These types of species have some of these species have a very narrow ang tawag dito, yung kanilang mga requirements for growth. So medyo yung iba sensitive, yung iba naman madali na i-propagate by cutting. So I'm not sure with Scyphifora kung pwede rin siya by cuttings lang, like some of the species of Ixora na pwede siyang mapatubo by just cutting the stem. But I believe that yung milad can also be planted outside mangrove area. So kahit na pero yung soil properties, I'm not sure with the requirements of Scyphifora. Kasi if you've been in sa LPP Chea, so yung ibang natanim nila medyo may part na sa may inland pero maybe still yung requirements nung species for siguro yung soil requirements yung kailangan natin i-check if it can grow also in other types of soil, yung Scyphifora.
Okay, thank you, Doc Ses. I will just add, because of a research conducted by a team from UP Los Baños, they were able to propagate the nilad. And so there is now a 5-year joint project between DNR and the local government of Manila titled Nilad para sa Maynila. So its primary objective is to do mangrove reforestation of the tidal creeks of this iconic plant of Manila. So it is now ongoing. I think the project is now ongoing and it's a very good project. Hopefully, it will prosper. Thank you.
So happy to hear that po, Dr. Rubite. Kasi kanina during our morning session, one of our speakers po, si Professor Bonilla, really reiterated that there is a need to preserve and conserve yung nilad plant. So thank you so much for Dr. Rubite. I think those are the only questions here on my end. So if you have questions pa po, Dr. Rubite, you can.
Okay, in the interest of time, let's proceed with the awarding of the certificate. Please help me read. I can't read.
All right. Okay, I'll be the one. Okay, so the Faura Project Incorporated and with the Philippine Botanical Arts Society and the University of the Philippines, Manila, presents this certificate of appreciation to Cecilia Moran. Next certificate, please. For her paper, Philippine Ixora, Getting to Know Our Own Flame of the Woods. We have another speaker, right? And also to Dr. Maribel Agoo for speaking on epiphytic Philippine orchids, plant on trees, given the second day of May 2022 during the conference plenary on celebrating heroes in heritage, endemic flowers during the 2022 International Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference. Signed, Dr. Hani Libertine, Achanzar-Labor, Convener, Conference on the Celebrating Conference on 22nd International Flores de Mayo Festival. Ms. Willa Famoso Tacan, President, Philippine Botanical Arts Society, and Professor Alice Agava, Chair, Department of Arts and Communication, College of Arts and Sciences, University of the Philippines, Manila.
Okay, thank you so much for Dr. Levy.
Thank you for your talks.
So I think now we can proceed with a quick picture taking just to commemorate this part of the session. So yes, let's smile po.
Let's invite the others if they want to join.
Yes.
If Dr.
Yeah, since we're at the end now of our first day of the festival, can we please invite everyone here in the Zoom room to turn on their cameras so we can all flash our prettiest and biggest smiles.
Should we remove the program or to make
Yes.
everyone's picture be there?
It's okay.
Yeah.
Para may marker. Yan. Okay. Yay! Hi, sir. Okay. Okay, I think that's it. Okay, sige, kahit naka-off yung cam niya, smile pa rin kayo ha. We can feel it kahit naka-off yung cam niya. Okay, sige, smile. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, next slide. Okay. 1, 2, 3, smile. Yay! Okay, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone. Sa lahat ng mga disturbo kong speakers, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
po.
you very
But
much.
actually,
Congratulations.
before we formally end, po, we would like to present to you po the agenda for tomorrow's conference. Kasi we have a very special lineup of speakers and talks tomorrow. So next slide, please. Yes, okay.
Congrats
so
to
tomorrow,
speakers.
we have congrats.
Cheat.
Thank you po.
Thank you, Sir
Congrats, Cheat.
Bot. Thank you,
Galing mo
po.
Thank you so
mag-toast
much
ka.
po.
Ang galing mo mag-toast.
Thank you po.
Yes, thank you so much po. Okay, so tomorrow we have the second part and the third part of the Celebrating Heroes and Heritage. So the first one would be the Painting and Myth Advocate. So this is moderated by Miss Rosie Hilario, who's actually here with us right now. So say hi po, Miss Rosie. Hi. Okay, she's saying hi. Okay, and then the third part naman is the Dance Advocate. So this is a very, very exciting day. So we hope to have you with us again tomorrow. We will be using the same Zoom link, so we hope to see you guys there. Okay, so now we will be having our evaluation form. So go, Gab.
All right. As said previously, we will have an evaluation form. So we would like to request everyone here today to scan the QR code or click the link sent to the Zoom chat to access our evaluation form. So please note that only those who answered the evaluation form may request for a certificate of attendance. Again, those who answered the evaluation form may request for a certificate of attendance.
And then beside the QR code for the evaluation form is another QR code for our GCash account. The conference is free, don't worry. But if you would like to donate any amount to the Faura Project Incorporated to help us with our costs for this festival, you are free to do so. So yes. Actually, so at this portion of the program, to really formally cap off day 1 of the Flores de Mayo festival, may we please call on Dr. Honey Libertine Achanzar-Labor for some words.
All right. Okay. So actually, Cha, you've practically covered the main part of what I wanted to share today, which is to invite our guests in tomorrow's event. But nonetheless, before doing that, I just want to thank everyone for joining us on the first day of our conference. I took note of some of those people who were here even from this morning's activity. So thank you once again for that. And then, yeah, as Chat said, we continue with our honoring, with our showcasing heroes tomorrow. So today we had heroes on endemic plants, and tomorrow heroes in relation to art. We have artists tomorrow, visual artists, poets, and also dance artists, and all of them also at the forefront of conserving floral heritage. So we look forward to that. And just to add something which was mentioned earlier, we invite you to join us if you are just in the Manila area, to actually join us in the opening of our art exhibit this Wednesday. So the opening will be at 2 p.m. and this will be at Artist Place. in Capital Commons in Pasig. So once again, so we are all invited to join us in the said opening. But as Chat said earlier, this will be also made visible through Facebook Live. So that's pretty much it. So once again, thank you so much for your being part of for being a great part in making our first day a success. Your presence is something which made it work and worthwhile. All right, Cha.
Thank you so much. So that's the end of our first day. Again, thank you so much for being here. And that's it. Don't forget to answer our evaluation form. The link is in the Zoom chat box. And you can leave once you're done. Have a great day, everyone.
And see you all again tomorrow. Tomorrow,
Thank
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
tomorrow is just in the morning,
Have a
Cha,
blessed day.
right?
Yes,
We only have
it's just in the morning.
conference will only be in the morning, right? Okay. So see you.